So I just came out of the 2245 interview, and they really didn't get down into the nitty-gritty and stuff, but I think I gave them some really interesting information, including what you should be afraid, the top 2 things you should be afraid of in the city of Dayton, that it's going to decrease your property values. And also, at the end, I brought up an issue that I really think is important, which nobody's been talking about, but the fact that these huge nonprofits have private police departments with the same rights as a regular police department, but they don't report to anybody that you vote for. So, again, we didn't have any candidates nights. There's been very little coverage. This corruption scandal's brought a lot of attention to things, but I don't think that's even scratching the surface. And I talked about some of the other things, that you should be thinking about when you say, where did my money go? Was that really in my best interest, or was it in somebody else's interest? Because that money sure didn't seem to benefit me. Anyway, I hope you watched the whole interview, and I hope you realize that my interviews aren't like other people's interviews, and if I'm elected to be your next city commissioner will never be the same again. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Remember to vote on Tuesday on the May 7th, where you get to choose 2 of the 5 candidates to advance to the next round in November.
So this is not your first time running for commissioner.
No.
That's, so tell me, I guess, what's kind of different this time around than last time?
It's been funny every time I've tried to run for these 2 seats, they found a way to keep me off the ballot. These are considered what are the weak seats because they don't have the brouhaha around the mayor's race, even though everybody has the same basic responsibilities, and there's the only difference is the mayor makes more money, sits in the middle seat and runs the meetings. So this is going back to I think 1993 since I last had a chance to run for this pair of seats. The whole concept of this special election to narrow it down to 4 candidates is a waste of taxpayers' money. We have no problems in the school board having 8 candidates. People pick 4 and that's who moves on. But the city does this on purpose in order to keep people out of the race. It's very hard to get 500 signatures that are approved. They tried to knock me off the ballot. I came back with signed affidavits and they looked like I killed their puppy. I mean, it was sad, but yeah. the systems, the culture of corruption shows every chance you get. Now I'm going to have to shut my phone off. Sorry about that. I forgot. Usually I'm good about that.
No, you're fine.
So, no, let me go back to that. So, the culture of corruption, shows up in everything that goes on in Montgomery County. The problems stem from the way the 2 parties have operated for years, where they make decisions in back rooms. They control the Board of Elections. They control access to the ballot. They control who gets to be on the ballot, who gets endorsed. And if you look at either the parties and you look at who are on the precinct chairs, there are very few that are elected and the rest are appointed, and most of them are working for elected officials. So you want to keep your job, you do what we say, and so that's what we get. It's pervasive. And when I brought up saying that no patronage job people should be on the precincts as service precinct captains, I get booed. I mean, that's how the Montgomery County Democratic Party works, and that's how the Republican Party works as well.
So you were obviously at the press conference with us all. So when you heard the FBI, did Dieter say, "This is a city of corruption," you were like, "Yeah."
I was like, he said, to be exact, he said a culture of corruption, and I was like, "What took you so long?" This has been going on for a long time, and I've brought it up over and over on my blog, which is Esrati.com, that is the most read political blog in Dayton, and people turn to it for the straight shooter on what's going on. But these real estate deals that have gone on in this community for ages have reeked of corruption. People are getting paid off, and even if they're not getting paid off, they're not what's in the best interest of the taxpayers. If you want me to start naming examples, I can go down a long list of things that just wouldn't make sense if things were being done on the up and up. You want an example that should look pretty strange to people? So you had the fairgrounds downtown, and it was a prime piece of real estate that's never been polluted, or it's as clean as they come, not like across the street where UD bought NCR's property and there were manufacturing plants where they were using solvents and cleaning things and, you know, that sort of thing. So you've got this pristine, basically, horse farm in the middle of the city. They put it up for bids, and well-known organizations put a lot of money together to put together a plan and a proposal, and they were going to be evaluated on their plans and proposals in order to acquire the property and do something with it. And they both turned in, two of them turned in, somebody else backed out. And what people don't know is that the chairman of Fuyao said, I'll spend $250 million on it, and he wasn't even allowed to seat at the table. So they went and they had plans and everything was drawn up, and all of a sudden they just got tossed and handed over to the Valley, to Premier Healthcare and UD, and they said the price was $15 million, but each of them only paid 5.2, and they keep saying this is a $15 million deal, and yet the price was $20 million to the private developers. So why are they calling it a $15 million deal if they only paid 5.2 and 5.2? That's 10.4. It's a $10.4 million deal. We subsidize the rest of it. Why are the taxpayers paying to subsidize this farm board, you know, that runs the fair in the first place? Okay, that's a county-wide thing, but no. And then why are we handing it over? Premier and UD never showed us a plan or told us what they're going to do. Yet another developer wants to come over and do the old Dayton Tire plant, and they're saying, "Oh, you don't have a plan. We're not going to rezone it. It's resident." Hello, what's going on here? Did we forget to pay the politicians to get things to happen? We've seen developers come in multiple times with big ideas and big plans and get run out of town. We can start with Bill Rain, who had plans for the Schwind building next to the old Dayton Daily News building downtown. And next thing you know, he's being foreclosed on. And then you have Bob Schiffler, who did the Kemneer building and then had the Schwind building, and he got foreclosed on. And then all of a sudden, they give $2 million to some developers from out of state, and they didn't, to build student suites. They didn't do anything. They kept the money. Then we paid to make a hole in the ground, paying a demolition company who then said you didn't pay us enough, and ended up owning one of the buildings, the only part of the historic buildings that was left, and left a giant hole in the ground, which we paid another company another couple million. Where does this not reek of corruption?
Yeah.
You look at Winfield Gibson, who came in with the fire blocks plan. He was ready to go. Next thing you know, couldn't get it all together. We're pulling all our financing. You didn't kiss the ring. See you later, Winfield. But this guy comes in from Columbus, and all of a sudden he's going great guns, and oh, we're a big fan. That's because somebody didn't pay somebody off. I'm not saying the new guy did, but we seem to show a bias to firms from out of town. The Troll Pub, we paid $450,000 to buy that property. We gave it to them for 10, and then we threw in Garden Station for free. Garden Station looked great when the citizens were taking care of it and made a great community space. It was a positive, good thing for our community. What do we have now? It looks like it did before Garden Station started working. It's a mess. And they haven't presented any plans.
So how come you, just don't think that at this, well, I guess let me rephrase it this way. So obviously, two incumbents running, stuff like this giant news coming out, so people are acting shocked and everything like that, to something very simple, well, not simple, but these are just the first charges we're hearing about. Why do you think people haven't really reacted to this before? I guess corruption. I mean, obviously, some people I think people have reacted, okay. But I think the biggest shock is that the only people they've managed to indict so far are 4 black businessmen, 4 well-known black people in the community. You mean to say no white people were involved at all in any of these scams, and all these people had the power to do this without oversight? Last I checked, Citywide was the one issuing the contract that they say Mr. Williams was involved in, and nobody there got indicted? Mm-hmm. Nobody got put in cuffs? What bothers me more than anything is $130 million went away from Wright State. There is no question it disappeared. And the state attorney general was the auditor and was responsible for those audits on those books, and he missed it every time, and now he's the attorney general, and the old attorney general is now our governor, and nothing has happened.
Huge amounts of money disappeared. Deals that were bad involving bank presidents, although it was a credit union president, happened. And nobody has gone off in cuffs. I love Wright Pat Credit Union, but the fact that the Wright Pat Credit Union CEO sold his building to Wright State just before he became a trustee, and then took that money and bought a building from Bob Mills, who's one of Wright State's biggest supporters, and all this happened through a shell corporation called Double Bowler, which paid a former Congressman, Steve Austria, $150,000 a year, and we have no idea of what, while the university was going down the tubes. And Double Bowler still exists, and the guy in charge is now the chief operating officer of Wright State, and they haven't arrested a single person, yet they fined them $1 million. When you get fined $1 million, and it's fining the taxpayers instead of the people who did it, and you're not saying there was something going, we have a serious problem. And when I asked that of Mr. Glassman, he looked like I killed his puppy too. And I'm sorry, I don't buy it that just these 4 people, they better start rolling out some other indictments pretty soon. And let me tell you, the people that they're indicting are people who've been inside this whole culture of corruption other than Mr. Higgins. I don't understand why somebody on a civil matter over an insurance claim is in with a corporate. It makes no sense at all, other than he's black and he knows all these people. But Clayton Lucky is already a known felon, and you've got to question anybody who went into business with a known felon to get government contracts isn't too bright in the first place. And that same person went out and built a deck for Joey Williams or whatever he supposedly did. Again, we don't know what, I don't know what their evidence is, so I can't assume. But this one person seems to be the connecting factor between the indictments, and I think it goes right back to this is part of them still trying to go after Steve Roush, the man who dug the hole and left it there on Ludlow with the old Dayton Daily News building. Because they raided his offices a year or so ago and still weren't able to indict. And the person that they are using as their source is Steve Roush's former top guy. But they're fishing at some point. But you know, putting people in handcuffs. The only other people I've known to be in handcuffs on investigations were Raleigh Trammell, who was a reverend on the West Side who was delivering health, services to the poor, and yet somebody was signing those checks. Somebody gave him that contract, and that person, Deborah Feldman, who was the county administrator, is now the CEO of Children's Medical Center. I'm sorry. Do we want to dig in some more? Deborah Feldman's family was one of the investors in the old Sears property that they basically told the county, first it was $3.2 million, then it was $4-something million. They finally sold for $8 million to build Riverscape. Her family benefited, and she was in office. Again, culture of corruption? Absolutely. Do any of these people get called out? No.
So how do you think this, I mean, there's already 1,000 votes already in almost from absentee ballots, but do you think that the news coming out about this right before election will change how people vote?
I don't know how people vote anymore. Okay, I think everything's turned upside down. We saw the longest shot in odds makers' history when he first announced become president of the United States. So I don't predict what voters do. I don't predict how voters think. I don't know, they can say all they want about me and say, oh, he's lost so many times, and oh, he's that crazy guy who wore a ninja suit, which is Mike Turner's way of describing it, not the actual what happened to City Commission. I'm suing the school board and the City Commission right now because they violated the sunshine laws. The judges don't even understand the sunshine laws. It's unbelievable how bad our sunshine laws are in the state of Ohio. One of the grounds is you can be removed from office for violating them. Does it ever happen in Ohio? No. You go look in Florida, it happens all the time. So, here I have been all these years trying to bring things to light. I think the story about Dr. Adil Bagirov, who was on the school board, who it turns out is this man of mystery from a foreign land who, was doing all these deals? I think it's an amazing story. But he committed voter fraud, and nobody would lift a finger. He didn't live in the district. Nobody would lift a finger. I finally had to threaten him after he changed his election registration voter registration a couple days before the last election. That was when I demanded that he resign, and he still wasn't going to resign until I threatened a lawsuit. I mean, I don't know what it takes for voters to get through to them that they've been getting played by the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, the whole mess of them have been doing this for years. They say endorsed. What does endorsed mean? It means 40 people who all are paid by tax dollars are deciding how they're going to divvy up the deals and the jobs amongst their friends and family. That's what endorsed means. Now, if they want to change that, this election's a good time to send a message to the endorsed people who have been playing this game all along and taking your tax dollars and handing them off to developers from out of town and giving away buildings left and right and tax breaks left and right to rich companies. Go ahead and vote for the incumbents. I think it's time to say no. But that's only me.
Well, that's what I was going to ask is, do you think this investigation will give you guys as challengers a leg up above the incumbents?
I'm not going to say anything for any of the other challengers, okay? That is not my... And I'm not going to tell people they should vote for me. That's not... They need to weigh things out. But when I look at the responses from the incumbents to the questionnaires, and it reads like the same person wrote for both of them, and it doesn't say anything, and I'm talking about ideas and concepts and things that we can do to change things, I think that should be a good indication to the voters that somebody out there who's been fighting for them for a long time to have open legal meetings is ready to go to work for them and change things. And I guarantee from day one on that city commission, they'll be like, this isn't business as usual, because we don't do things like a business does. Even though we have the city manager form of government, the mayor still thinks she runs the city. That's not how it works. It's supposed to take 5 people to make a decision, not one person telling the other 4 what to do. And I'll be very surprised if the taxpayers and the voters stand up for this, because it's really been a travesty. There's a reason Dayton has lost population. There's a reason investment has left. There's a reason people don't feel confident investing. Look at a small business like the Mendenhalls, who own Blind Bob's and Lily's. They had to pay for those buildings. They had to rehab those buildings. They employ people. They've been in business for a long time. They're scrambling for parking in the Oregon district, and here comes the Troll Pub from out of town, gets their building for $10 and a parking lot thrown in and garden station, and they have to compete with that? That is not fair. And just remember this, okay? This is something else. They talk about demolition contracts. We can't demolish our way to success. You can't build a city by tearing things down. But the demolition contracts, which seem to be the root of a lot of these issues that we're seeing, this has been good business for the city and a lucrative contract for somebody else. And that person used to give a lot of money to the Democratic Party, and I've outlined this on my blog several times. But if you need any further indication, I can take you to multiple places in the city where a house burned a year and a half ago, and the building's still standing there, even though there's no chance for rehab. Mm-hmm. But when the building on Warren Street burns down right next to school board member Karen Wick Gagne's house, it's gone in under 2 months. Remember, she was endorsed by the people that give us this culture of corruption.
Yeah. Wow.
And when she wanted to tear a building down, did she use the contractor that the city did use? No, because they cost too much. They had somebody else do it. This stuff has been going on for years, and it needs to stop. And the only way it's going to stop is if you change the people on that commission.
All right. Anything else you want to add before we do this? Or anything else you want to add?
I mean, I just gave you.
Yeah, no, you were good. You were good. You gave it everything. I didn't even have to ask questions.
Well, let's. The fact is, okay, I don't think we're done with indictments. And I don't know who else is going to get indicted and how deep they're going to go and how smart the FBI actually is. I don't know the answers to that. But if I was a voter in Dayton, there are two things that would terrify me if I'm a property owner. One of them is having the house next door to me foreclosed on. Because after it gets foreclosed on, the sheriff does the bank's bidding and kicks the people out. The next thing that happens is the house gets scrapped and all the copper is taken out, and it gets really expensive to bring that building back. So your property, because your neighbors didn't do their thing, your property is going to be devalued. And the second thing, so the sheriff's helping the banks devalue your property. That's one thing that would scare me. And the second is having a fire next door. Because if your house doesn't burn, the next thing is it's going to sit there for a long time and devalue your property as well. And we're not going somehow and holding the property owners responsible. We're not getting these things taken down fast enough unless, of course, you're a school board member. So those two things severely, dangerously impact the value of your real estate and of your neighborhood. And the fact that it's been happening for so long and they've gotten so far behind because they're busy giving $10 million to do the arcade and $500,000 to buy this building, and $500,000 to do that building, $500,000 to build a parking lot for the steam plant. Where's the payback to the voters? And when you go to look at all the way up to the state level, why are they subsidizing building giant warehouses in Monroe? There aren't any workers in Monroe to fill those warehouses, so those people are going to have to get on I-75 either from Cincinnati or Dayton to get there, or maybe from Middletown. But who put those giant warehouses there? Why aren't those on the Dayton Tire site or the McCall site or any one of these vacant industrial sites in Dayton where we have workforce that is able to do those jobs? The only place they're doing things like that is out at the airport. We're in some sort of tax-free zone. Why is it there? Why isn't it helping the people in the city of Dayton? Why do we have so many governments? It makes no sense at all. But they're all working together, and people are lining their pockets. And it's not just at the local level, it goes all the way to the top. We're not making good investments with our tax dollars. Oh, I got one other thing. Okay. One other thing. Another thing that I think needs to be addressed because my neighborhood benefited for 20 years of having private police provided by the city of Dayton, paid for by Premier Miami Valley Hospital. Last I checked, we're not allowed to have private armies in the United States. In fact, as a former soldier, I could have gone off to be a mercenary, but it's against the law. But when you think that UD, Miami Valley, Sinclair, Grandview, you look at all these places and they all have their own private police departments with no oversight by anybody we elected, no mayor, no sheriff. And these people are full police officers, some of them carrying AR-15s, with the full ability to arrest you and to shoot you. Okay, that's one of the scary things when you realize that police officers are the only people who are actually allowed to kill you legally in this country. All they have to do is say, I was at fear for my life. Look out at the Walmart where he said, oh, this guy was threatening me, so I shot him. And he got away with it. Look at Samuel DuBose in Cincinnati, where a Cincinnati State, a University of Cincinnati police officer shot an unarmed man in a car over a traffic stop. Why are only these rich institutions that don't pay property taxes allowed to have private police forces? And yet you can't have police officers responding to your house. I'm sorry. I don't find that acceptable. I don't know where we started creating fiefdoms. Why don't we just build a wall around Miami Valley Hospital and one around UD and one around Sinclair and just declare them separate independent nations? Yet we pay for Sinclair. Why do they have so many police officers? And who is over them? That should scare the living daylights out of people in this community, because private armies are not okay. And I feel strongly about this, and I don't think it's correct. And as somebody who was in the military, it worries me because the chain of command leads up to a private corporation, a CEO, or a university president, not to anybody we elect. What's next? You want a police officer, you hire them from the city of Dayton, or you hire them from the sheriff's department. Otherwise, you have a security guard. They don't have full police powers. They don't run around packing a gun. They can't write you a ticket. They can't arrest you. They can't detain you. But having ones that can, that's a dangerous precedent. And it's something we didn't get to talk about because we didn't have any, there were no forums. There were no debates in this. This race isn't important enough.
I think that's a national thing.
Oh, no. This is the first time I've ever run and there hasn't been a single candidate.
Oh, no, not that. I meant the university police thing.
It is.
Yeah, because I had them at Florida State.
Yeah, but it's not right. It really isn't. I don't know of anything that says in the Constitution that you're allowed to have your own private army to protect your stuff. And again, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to come in. I don't know what's going to make it onto your, but these are the issues. And when you talk to me, you hear about serious issues compared to when you talk to some of these other people who don't have anything to say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was surprised there hadn't been any like forums or anything like
None.
that.
Nothing.
I'm sure now they wish they would have.
Not so
Not
sure.
Not held by the city, maybe, but.
Well, no. I mean, usually like the League of Women Voters or the NAACP, at a minimum, some neighborhood groups, none of them. And the election's Tuesday. Now, granted, they're only going to knock one person off.
Yeah.
Now, what it'll be telling is if it's an incumbent that gets knocked off for the first time ever, other than Gary Leitzel in the mayor's race with Nan Whaley. Again, I'm sure we could have picked between three, but we weren't trusted enough. So, anyway.
Are you good?
You got everything you need?
Yeah.
Good.
All right, so I'll take the mic from you. Yeah, no, this will be on. I'm probably gonna put up everybody's interviews on the website, the full ones. And then for my 6.
I put mine on.
Okay. So then the 6 o'clock story will focus really on like how people think the investigation's like playing into everything. And
you didn't really ask me that point.
No. Like if they like were surprised by it, I guess.
If they're surprised by it, they're not paying attention.
Yeah.
So I mean, seriously.
No, I know.